Starting at number 10, we have the Marid. The Marid are considered the most powerful tribe of jinn, and the word Marid means rebellious. They're the classic type of genies like you would see in movies like Aladdin, and they're often associated with water. Marid can change their shape, and they're said to have a lot of pride and want to show off a lot. Usually depicted with hands folded with a barrel chest. Number 9 brings us Ifrit. Now they're only mentioned in the Quran just one time. In Islam, the term Ifrit is always followed by the expression of the jinn, the Ifrit of the jinn. That's how usually sentences are written. They are very powerful and they emerge out of smoke from the ground, and they form into large winged demon creatures, and they actually bleed fire. And they're from the underworld, which is where the evildoers are gonna go for their punishment. We have ghouls at number 8, and these are jinn that haunt the cemeteries. They're flesh-eating creatures, and they like to eat living flesh as well as dead flesh. They don't care. Sometimes though, they appear as beautiful women to lure men. Moving on to number 7, we have the Silat. So these also take on the form of beautiful women to lure men, and they also have intercourse with them and can procreate with them. These are akin to the succubus, but the Silat aren't always around doing evil things. Sometimes they do a bit of good as well. Number 6 brings us the Sheik. So the Sheik is a lower form of jinn and also a half creature, really half formed creature. They look very weird, and it's said that they go after travelers who just aren't paying attention. And the scary thing is that the Sheik are able to procreate also with human beings, and they can produce offspring, and these offspring are called Nas, and they also look a lot like the Sheik. Next up, we have the Hatif. So Hatif is a type of jinn. They have no physical form, they're just disembodied voices, and the Hatif mimic the voices of people's loved ones and call out their names. And again, they have no form, but they always sound like somebody that you know, whether it's a close friend or family member, somebody that you're related to. So if you do hear your name being called out and it sounds like somebody that you know but you don't see anybody, it could be a Hatif. So I'm looking at the Qareen next up, and the Qareen, they incite humans with evil suggestions, but they can become good also based on the good deeds of humans. So for example, it's said that the Qareen of the Prophet Muhammad became Muslim. However, it is uncertain and is not really specified whether or not any other Qareen outside of the Prophet Muhammad have become good for the actions of another human being. Next up is Hind. So scholars debate this, whether or not the Hind are a subclass of jinn or a completely separate group altogether who rival the jinn. But the jinn and the Hind, they're said to have waged war against one another, and according to some accounts, the Hind supported the angels led by Iblis during a battle against the jinn that lived on the earth. Hind are also created out of fire just like the jinn. I'm looking at the Jann now at number 2, and the Jann are shapeshifters who live in the desert, and they take the forms of whirlwinds as well as white camels. Now they're pretty open-minded when it comes to humans. They have the power to hide or reveal bodies of water in the desert, and this is all just dependent on whether or not they like a particular traveler. The Jann are also the enemy of the Ghoul, and throughout history the Jann have protected quite a bit of armies that they have deemed righteous while stopping those who are seen to be unworthy. So history is greatly affected of whether or not the Jann step in like this. And at number 1, we have the Palis. So the Palis is just straight up creepy. They are vampiric footlickers that are found in the desert. And according to the legends, they are not that smart though. They attack people when they're sleeping, and they drain their blood by licking the bottom of their feet. And since they're not very smart, you can easily fool them just by covering the bottoms of your feet, and they're gonna be like, I have no idea what to do. Okay, so let's start off with number 10. We have the Familiar. In European folklore, familiar spirits, also known as simply familiars or animal guides, are believed to be supernatural beings that would help witches and magicians in practicing their magic. As the legends became more and more, there have been many accounts that familiars would appear in different forms, like animals, or sometimes as humans or human-like figures. Next up at number 9, we have the Jinn. Some of you are very familiar with the term Jinn. Well, a jinn is a supernatural being, and it is sometimes spelled as D-J-I-N-N in English, and also referred to as a genie. They were mentioned in early Arabian mythology and later Islamic theology. They're also supernatural beings that are below the level of angels. They are found in the writings commonly in the Quran, the 72nd surah, which is titled Surat al-Jinn, and other Islamic texts, and they live among humans in this world. The Quran says that the jinn are created out of a smokeless and scorching fire, but they are still physical beings. Number 8 brings us to the Jikininki. These are human-eating ghosts. They are spirits of greedy, selfish, or unholy people who are cursed after death to seek out and eat human corpses. It is said that someone by the name of Muso was roaming alone through the mountains in the Mino district of Japan when he lost his way. And it was pretty dark where he was, but he ended up seeing on top of a hill an old anjitsu, which is the home of priests who live secluded lives. So he walked to the peak of the hill and he asked the inhabitant if he might stay the night. But the inhabitant was an old priest who completely refused him. Although he did tell him that he could find food and a place to sleep in a hamlet that's close by. The priest ended up revealing himself as a Jikininki who was cursed to roam as a spirit after his death to continuously feed on humans due to his life of selfishness. Number 7, a very popular type of demon, especially in pop culture, we have the poltergeist. Now, this is German for noisy ghost or noisy spirit, and it's a type of ghost or demon that is responsible for physical disturbances like loud noises and objects being moved or destroyed. Most accounts of poltergeist show them as being able to touch, bite, push, and even speak to humans. Like I mentioned, they're also capable of moving objects or making them levitate, can move all the heavy kind of furniture, knock on doors, knock on windows, and they have traditionally been described as spirits who haunt a particular person rather than haunting a specific place. The demon at number 6 is succubus. Succubus is a demon in female form or a supernatural entity in folklore that shows up in dreams and takes the figure of a woman in order to seduce men, typically through intimate activity. They have also been known to cause sleep paralysis and induce, the wet dreams that people have. According to certain religious traditions, repeated intimate relations with a succubus can result in a decline in physical health and mental health. Succubuses are said to be jealous spirits and in some cases take the life of those who get closely involved with them. Continuing with number 5, we have incubus. An incubus is a demon that typically appears in male forms. And according to myths and legends, they are depicted with women in some sort of way, which also links them to intimate activities with them. So you can pretty much though call these the masculine version of the succubus, which I just looked at. They induce the same kind of dreams, it's just in a masculine version. Abaizu is at number 4. In myth and folklore in Europe especially, Abaizu is the name of a female demon. Abaizu was blamed for miscarriages and infant mortality, and she is said to be motivated by envy because she herself is infertile. So she punishes other women to try to feel better about her own situation. Next up at number 3, we have Barbatos. Barbatos is an Earl and Duke of Hell. He rules 30 legions of demons and has 4 kings as his companions to help rule his legion of demons. His name comes from the Latin word barbatus, meaning bearded, old man, or philosopher. He can speak to animals and can tell the future, apparently anyways. He also can apparently help lead people to hidden treasures. He is the 8th demon, the lesser key of Solomon. Next up, let's look at Surgat. Surgat is a lesser demon of hell, and he's known as the one who opens all locks because he's able to understand and open any single lock that is created in the world. It is believed that Surgat was once summoned to the physical world by someone in hopes that he would give him knowledge to invent a new device or mechanism that would greatly benefit the world. Now, this mechanism ended up being the locks that we use for doors, and the summoning was the first appearance of Surgat, and where he first appeared is believed to be located in Nineveh, which is the ancient capital of Assyria. But you see, getting this knowledge, it came at a big price, and this price was that he would be able to forever haunt those who would have locks in very dark homes, since the darkness is the atmosphere that Surgat likes the most. When someone becomes Surgat's target, what he does is he pursues them without end, no matter how hard the person tries to escape. And once he gets to his victims, he scares them and terrifies them with images that, in many cases, make them go completely crazy. Let's end off this episode with number 1, the ghoul. Ghoul. These are demonic beings believed to inhabit burial grounds and other deserted places. In ancient Arabic folklore, ghouls are a very evil class of jinn, and they were said to be the offspring of Iblis, also known as Satan, who is the prince of evil according to Islam. Ghouls are capable of changing forms, but you can always spot one if you look for this sign. They have hooves like donkeys, and they aren't able to change that, no matter what form they appear in. Yes, ghouls, they roam the desert and other deserted places, and they often disguise themselves as attractive women, and they try to distract people that are traveling, and if they're successful in distracting them, they end up eating them. Yeah. Very, very evil creatures.
All right, up at number 10, we have Ravana. Ravana was a powerful and evil demon king with 20 hands and 10 heads. He was considered the most dreadful creature of the universe, but was one of the very intellectual demons who mastered all the holy scripts of Hindu mythology. He perished at the hands of Rama for abducting Rama's wife, Sita, to marry her. When Lord Rama terminated Ravana, he was known as one of the longest living demons. Up next, we have Mahishasur. Mahishasur was a demon king who inherited a buffalo's body with the upper body of a human. He was a devotee of Lord Brahma and eventually got a blessing from him that no man would ever be able to kill him and that only a woman could kill him. Mahishasur was extremely powerful, and his pride led to his downfall. Believing that he would be immortal and that no woman would be able to match his strength, he started a great war. However, the prophecy was fulfilled when Mahishasur perished at the hands of a woman, Madurga, who fought him to stop the war he had created. All right, up next we have Hiranyakshipu. Hiranyakshipu was the egoistic demon king. He wanted his people to praise him as a god and considered himself to be the center of the world. He believed he was the creator of the universe with uncontrollable supreme power. While his entire kingdom worshipped him, his own son Prahlad refused to worship him as the Lord and instead was devoted to Lord Vishnu. Out of jealousy, Hiranyakshipu attempted many times to end the life of his son, but was unsuccessful. Seeing this, Lord Narsimha, or a form of Lord Vishnu, tore apart the demon Hiranyakshipu and destroyed him. Moving on to the story of Mahabali. Now, not every demon in Hindu mythology was completely evil. Mahabali is an example of one of the more generous demon kings. Everyone in his kingdom was happy under his rule, and he was completely devoted to the Lord. Once a Vamana came to his kingdom and asked the demon king to give him a piece of land just big enough to be covered by his footsteps. Now, secretly, it was Lord Vishnu disguised as Vamana. Generous as he was, Mahabali promised to fulfill the wish of Vamana. And upon hearing this promise, Vamana grew so big that one of his footsteps covered the entire world, and Mahabali came to know that Vamana was really Lord Vishnu. To seek blessings from the Lord, Mahabali asked Vamana to put the next footprint on his forehead. But of course, as a result of receiving the Lord's giant footstep on his forehead, Mahabali perished. Up at number 6, we have the story of Raktabija. Raktabija was one of the strongest demons who had a very unique blessing that if even one drop of his blood fell on the ground, from that same drop, a duplicate of him would be born. This meant that it was very difficult to defeat or terminate Raktabija, so no one dared to challenge him. Every time Raktabija's duplicate was formed, his power would increase. Now, in a battle with the goddess Durga, Raktabija's blood spilled to the ground and thousands of Raktabija were born. Eventually, the Hindu goddess Kali came forward and pierced the demon, making sure to drink every drop of blood that spilled before it could ever hit the ground, and in essence, terminating him. Now, up at the halfway point in today's video at number 5, we have Narakasura. Narakasura was a demon king ruler disliked by his people because he tortured them. He had once kidnapped around 1,600 women only to torment them for his own pleasure. Soon his people could no longer take the torture and collectively approached the supreme being Krishna for help. Krishna promised that he would fight and terminate the demon king on their behalf. However, Narakasura's life could only end at the hands of a woman. So Krishna and his wife fought the battle against Narakasura, emerging victoriously and destroying Narakasura. And now we come to the story of Kumbhakaran. Hindu demon Kumbhakarna, or the sleeping giant, had an enormous body and was blessed with the ability to sleep for months. But once asleep, waking him was considered tremendously difficult. His brother Ravana, who was also a powerful demon, had kidnapped Rama's wife to marry her. When war broke out between the two, Ravana needed his brother's help to win the war. To wake him from a deep sleep, Ravana had 1,000 elephants walk over Kumbhakaran, waking him in time for battle. Now, Kumbhakaran knew that his brother was doing wrong, and for that, he tried to convince him to stop, but Ravana would not listen. Out of loyalty, Kumbhakaran fought against Rama for his brother. He destroyed most of Rama's army in the battle, but eventually perished at the hands of Rama. Up next at number 3, we have the story of Tarakasura. Tarakasura was an evil demon king who defeated his challengers and forced them to become his servants. He praised the gods and eventually received their blessings. However, he began to misuse his power and many innocent perished at his hands. As per his blessing from the gods, Tarakasura could only be defeated by the son of Lord Shiva, but at the time, Shiva had no children. However, after Shiva's marriage to Parvati, Kartikeya was born. Kartikeya then fought Tarakasura and destroyed him and all of his brothers. Moving on to the story of Surpanaka. Surpanaka was a wicked demoness and the sister of the demon king Ravana. She was considered very ugly and married to Dushtabudi. Dushtabudi was terribly greedy and wanted Ravana's kingdom. When Ravana heard about his intentions, he destroyed Dushtabudi, leaving Surpanaka a widow. A few years later, she saw Lakshmana and Rama roaming around the forest. She was attracted to them and of course wanted to marry them. However, both of them declined her proposal and she became angry. To try and win their love, she attempted to attack Sita, the wife of Rama, and the sister-in-law of Lakshmana. Because of this, Lakshmana chopped off her nose and Rama declared a battle against her. In the end, Rama emerged victoriously and Surpanaka left alone and in tears. And up at number 1, perhaps one of the most evil demons that I found was Putna. Lord Krishna appeared as a supreme personality on earth to destroy all the demons and protect his devotees. Putna was the demoness who practiced the art of taking the lives of infants through black magic. One day, Putna dressed herself as a beautiful girl and entered the infant Krishna's house to end his life. When Putna entered the room, she took Krishna onto her lap. The wicked demoness had smeared poison on her nipple and pushed it into his mouth, expecting him to die as she fed him. However, her plan failed, and instead, the infant Krishna sucked the life out of her. Eventually, the demoness returned to her normal form and perished, screaming in pain as her body extended up to 12 miles, crashing into trees and the village houses.
In another episode.